what makes AI generated content good, right? We all complain about AI slop. We don't like how ChatGPT sounds. We put in all these hacks, right, with our own styles to make it sound good. Um, but ultimately, lots of marketers that I speak to just aren't really happy with the output of AI writing. And why am I thinking about this? Why am I working on this? So I'm working with a partner on a document editor for marketers that we're launching this fall. And basically, the quality of the writing is kind of all that matters in that, right? Like, it doesn't matter if we build the best platform, the coolest features, right? If ultimately the writing isn't good. So we need some like North Star or a series of North Stars that we'll get into, like what makes good marketing writing. And here I'm talking about blog posts, social posts, ads, web copy, all the various form factors of content that you need to write uh, as a marketer. So what makes it good? We've tried to boil it down, in theory, to three factors, right? Style, does it sound one, not like ChatGPT, and also more importantly, does it sound like how you want it to sound? Well, that's your brand voice or your own author voice. Structure, if you're trying to make a blog post, did it produce a blog post kind of to your specs, right? And the structure that you want it to? Did the model follow your instructions? Same thing with social posts, ad copy, it really matters, right? You need certain lengths to conform to the platforms. And accuracy. Does it, is it true, right? Which is really hard because, like, what is truth? That gets into a very existential question. But I think the more tractable question with the accuracy of AI writing is it conforming to like your ground truth, right? If you have a list of notes or like assertions or claims that you're trying to make as a marketer, um, is the writing that's being produced matching those claims, or is it like producing new claims or injecting new ideas that weren't what you were trying to say? Um, so I kind of think about like these three factors, right? Style, structure, and accuracy. I'm not the first person to think about these. So the goal of this video is to unpack some of the academic papers, right? Who's been actually working on this problem and solving it academically, proposing solutions, and like what can we take from those and apply to our own marketing writing with AI. So let's dig into a few papers. I read them, spent a few hours reading them, so you don't have to. Before we get into that, like how do we measure um, success, right, across any metric with AI? We do that with an eval, right? An eval could be like a human preference. I like this one over this one, and kind of adding that up. An eval could be like a continuous, decimal between 0 and 1, right? That's scored with a language model itself. The judge could be human or AI. So let's kind of let's decompose different evals for style, structure, and accuracy, and see like what's reasonably achievable in terms of measuring, what actually makes good AI generated marketing. Let's talk about style first, because I think it's the hardest, and I think also the most actionable for most of us doing marketing writing. We're all trying to pass like some kind of style guide right into ChatGPT or Claude or whatever it is, or build some type of custom GPT that incorporates our style. And there's been a big debate, about fine tuning models versus just, zero shot or few shot passing like instructions in the prompt when generating text. And I think this paper, TST Bench, kind of puts that to bed. And also, I think, puts to bed the idea that you can really evaluate like what's good style transfer, writing in your style. So this is really interesting. This paper's from May 2025, so it's very fresh, right? Comprehensive benchmark for text style transfer. Style transfer, basically, you could break it down across a few areas, but it's sentiment or positive or negative in terms of style intent, formality, syntactic, right? Are you using the words from the style? I'm not exactly sure what authorship means, but so they break style down into a number of factors. And I think we can kind of skip through here. I think the key findings of this towards the bottom. Here's what I was looking for. So basically, this chart shows that zero shot or few shot prompting, where you just pass a style guide or some examples, basically, uh, performed really well on human evaluation relative to fine tuning, right? Full parameter, parameter efficient fine tuning, just different types of fine tuning. Um, Blue is zero shot or few shot prompting, and red and orange or yellow are fine tuning. So basically, style strength. Are you maintaining the style and fluency? Like, is this readable? Were more highly rated by human evaluators, right? So this is what you ultimately want to get to. So I think in terms of saying what's good or the right method to generate text with marketing text with AI, I think this is a really good um, confirmation that most of us who are thinking that just passing some examples or passing a style guide with the prompt is the right way to go versus wasting a bunch of time fine tuning. More to the point of like, how do you evaluate what's good? Uh, what's interesting is that the correlation between a human evaluating their preference um, versus a model. These are all like model evaluations of quality of text. Uh, Basically, and this is the finding, the inadequacy of automatic evaluation suggests current evaluation metrics may not be suitable for assessing the performance of LLM models. This was kind of like the money quote for me. That there is no great like automatic way that we currently know of, right? There's maybe somebody working on it somewhere. No great way to evaluate whether the text that's produced by an AI model is good in terms of whether it's conforming to your style, right? Or what you're trying to do with your style. That's really nice because it means we should just rely on human judgment at this point for whether a style is good. So I've seen people like literally hand grade, like I like the way that this model produces text for my topic versus this model, right? Whether it's like Claude versus Gemini versus, ChatGPT or any of the OpenAI models. Um, I think that's great. Like there's ways that you can farm out that feedback, right, to people externally, internally within your team, yourself, right? Whatever it is. But it's important to know that this is like put your mind to rest on this and just like use your judgment. Use your judgment and for style transfer, just like pass your style guide or some examples, right? So it's nice to. This is style is probably the most controversial, so it's nice to at least, based on this paper, if we trust this data, um, put that to bed a bit. Next, let's look at like format following. This one was pretty interesting. So there's a format following um, benchmark. This was, I think, released, sponsored by Salesforce Research, right? With some researchers at these universities. This came out February 2024. So here we are in 2025. Not that old. Probably still relevant. But the kind of interesting piece here is for evaluating form following, we're ultimately talking about prompting, right? So that use GPT-4 in this case as an evaluator, right? To say, based on this instruction for, I want to write a blog post, a social post with these characteristics, a web page, web copy or web components with these characteristics, right? You can just use another AI model, they use GPT-4 in this case, to evaluate like, did the output match your desired input? So when you're selecting which model should I use for this task, or how much should I trust this model to produce this type of asset? This is the type of workflow that you can build, which is basically, make the structure, pass it to the model to generate a thing, and then use that model or another model to evaluate the correctness to format. And this is their prompts. This is their system prompt. You can go link to this paper. You can go pick it up, or you can just read it and make your own. It's not, the key thing I'm sharing is like, it's not that complicated. They're just passing a system prompt to do evaluation, right? And they're saying, here's the instruction, here's the output, grade this, give me correctness and the reasons for it, right? So this is not, this is a scientific process in terms of like they're collecting data, and how they collected this data was generating lots and lots of examples. and a really clean data set. So that's what's important in the methodology, but the actual like judgment, what is good in terms of format following, is not that complicated. The interesting findings here, let me zoom in on this a little bit, was looking at different domains, right? So down here we have marketing. We could look at different formats for entertainment or finance or legal, right? They all have different types of document structures that you want to generate. The models, and here there's just talking about two open source models, right? Mistral 7 billion parameter and Llama 7 billion. So like relatively small models, right? But open source and easy to test on. The performance was very different in terms of form following scores, depending on the domain and depending on, here they're testing GPT 3.5 and Gemini Pro, like depending on the data structure that you're looking to output, right? So not all, particularly like scientific R&D, finance had some differences, marketing had some differences here. So depending on the domain that you're working in, of course, depending on, how that model is trained, training data, process, all that stuff, it could have different outcomes in terms of being able to write to your structure. Now, marketing is like fairly well understood. Like there's tons of marketing emails, blog posts, all the internet, right, is full of blog posts and web pages. So I think it's reasonable to assume at this point that most of the, kind of cutting edge models, current models are going to perform reasonably well. But it's still a good indicator to go check, right, and actually test these things if you're going to use them at scale, right? Like Gemini could be worse than, some of OpenAI's models at this because they're all have slight nuances and differences depending on the domain. I think those were the main things on form following, but yeah, Fofo also wins for best benchmark name. Let's see what else. So in terms of fact validation, let's look at Veriscore. There were a bunch of models. Okay, let's take a step back. So like, is what you're saying true, right? Quote unquote. All of the eval frameworks that I found, there was Veriscore, Align Score, Fact Score. I don't know why they all need to be named after scores. They all do something very similar. And again, similar to format following, this is something that's very straightforward for you to do yourself, right? They basically extract atomic claims. If you zoom in even further, they extract atomic claims, right? With the implicit assumption that all claims are verifiable. This is what you want to be doing for marketing, right? Because you're not in marketing, you're dealing with claims, right? You're saying your product is good at X, Y, and Z versus your competitor's product that sucks at X, Y, and Z. Not the saying you say that, but you're stating strong opinions publicly and making claims about like how do you see the world? How does your company see the world, and how your customers, your users, like should ideally, hopefully see the world in the same way that you do, and that's why they buy from you. So we're not talking about like ground truth where it's cited facts that'll be, anywhere on Wikipedia that like can be looked up. You just want like internal consistency of the facts that you've stated before, right? Say your product marketing team, your product team signs off on like, here's what our product does, here's how we talk about it, here's who it's for, here's who it's not for. And you want to make sure that the rest of your marketing communications, the emails, blogs, etc., that you're sending out conforms to those set of facts, and that you're not like trying to set new precedent about what your product does or who it serves in like some random launch blog post or some random like partner campaign that you're doing with a partner, right? When they try to get you to say something that differs from your core messaging, right? Because that might be in their interests or that might be their messaging, right? But you want to keep your messaging tight. Have literally had that happen in big ways, unfortunately. So this is, I think, the process to know about, right? So this is why having some kind of like knowledge graph for your organization as a marketer is so important, right? Because the hard work of evaluating whether something a language model is saying is true or not is really upfront, where you extract, you have all of your, you know, your messaging docs, ICP statements, persona docs, all of your kind of like product marketing and other docs. You have all of your product knowledge itself, your product documentation, your kind of catalog, your PIM, whatever your source is, right, of product truth. You have product truth, you have how you're talking about it, and you want those in some form that can be queried by a language model, right? So that we don't need to get too into the weeds, but the kind of operative term there is like some type of knowledge graph where you can use that knowledge when you're writing and then verify after the text has been generated for whatever campaign you're planning, whatever it is, by a language model. You can then pull back the source, compare those two sets of facts. Again, it's very similar to like format following, where it's just like a prompt, right? And have it verify and validate, like, did the language model follow the facts or did it like inject new facts? This paper and other kind of like ground truth fact validation evals, also look at, for example, like Google search, right, or other search methods. They look at human evaluation. They do other things like that. But I think for marketing claims, which are truthy, right, they're not actual truth. I think basic extraction and validation is going to be sufficient. Okay, so to sum up, how do we know whether marketing content generated with AI is good? There's 3 factors that I like to think about. 1 is style, 2 is structure, 3 is accuracy. In terms of style, there is no automatic like eval that we should trust, right? From this paper, TST bench, I'll trust them. Human grading is just the way to go, right? Human grading and passing just like a few examples or a style guide rather than fine-tuning models. That's the way to go with style. In terms of format, we have this FOFO paper from a bunch of researchers, wins an award for best name. And basically what we learn there is if you want to follow a specific format, whether it's blog, social, etc., you can just use a language model as a grader of, are you following the format, right? So have it generate something and then verify, validate, did it follow the instructions? If not, you can have it fix that. And then in terms of truth or accuracy for saying what you're wanting to say, there's Veriscore and a bunch of other papers. Let's see. What else? Sorry for scrolling here. Align score, fact score. What we learned from them is they all follow a very similar method, and they basically decompose text into atomic short claims, and then they validate that, right? Verification of claims. For marketing, because we don't care about like ground truth, we care about truthiness, right? Our own claims, are they internally consistent? We don't need to do like the verification step because there is no verification to like our product is great. It's just like make sure you say it's great in the same ways every time. Okay, that's it. I learned a lot reading through these papers. I hope you learned a bit here. And the short answer is, what makes AI generated marketing good? You have to decide for yourself ultimately, but you can have some automated methods of validating structure and internal consistency or accuracy. Hope that helps. Take care. Like I said, I'm working on a document editor specifically for marketers that will have a lot of this kind of, judgment based into it and built into the process. So looking forward to sharing more. Take care.